Hello, this is Modern Mongolia. I'm your host Donna. Here I candidly talk about Mongolian life, culture, art, and share lived experiences. Welcome aboard. Growing up in Mongolia has its own uniqueness. For me, it was shaped by two very different worlds: nomadic life on the steppe and fitting in the modern hustle of the city. Out on the steppe, life follows the seasons and the herd, so kids learn early how to handle horses, cattle, help with daily chores, and also enjoy the wide open spaces as their playground. No walls, just endless sky and fresh air. It's a childhood connected deeply to nature and tradition. On the other hand, city kids face a different adventure. Between tall buildings and busy streets, they juggle school, playtime in parks or playgrounds, and the buzz of modern life. Some of us experienced both the open countryside and the liveliness of Ulaanbaatar. I'm one of them. And others grew up rooted in the countryside, while some of us never left the city at all. But what does it mean to grow up in Mongolia today? So, for people like me, there's a lot of nostalgia, good memories of childhood running around, feeling free. But the reality for many children today, it's a different story and not always an easy one. But we'll get into that a bit later. Mongolia is a young country, literally. Out of a population of 3.5 million, about 1.5 million are under the age of 25. That's 45% of the entire country. And of those, a huge majority, 86%, are children under 18. And the median age of Mongolian population is just 26. So when we talk about children in Mongolia, we're not just talking about the future, we're talking about nearly half the people living here right now. In this episode, we'll talk about the Children's Day, June 1st. I'll share the backstory of how this holiday came to be, what it means to families, and how we celebrate it typically. And I'll also reflect a bit on my own childhood memories, some nostalgia, and we'll also hear from a few of our amazing listeners who sent their favorite childhood memories from growing up. And later on, I want to talk about the other side of that story, what growing up looks like today for many kids across Mongolia, because while June 1st is still full of joy, celebration, too many children are facing adult sized problems today in Mongolia. Let me tell you the history of Children's Day. In 1925, at the World Conference on the Well-being of Children in Geneva, the idea of dedicating a day to children first took shape. The message was simple: the world needed to start taking children's rights seriously. That same year, many countries, especially in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union, began marking June 1st as International Children's Day. It wasn't just symbolic, it was a way to promote peace, education, and the protection of children. The idea spread quickly through the Soviet bloc and became a yearly tradition. In Western Europe, it took little longer to catch on. The concept was usually tied to United Nations efforts, and June 1st didn't have the same weight. But in the East, the date stuck, and to this day, countries like Russia, Poland, Kazakhstan, and others still celebrate it with parades, events, and the strong focus on children's well being. In 1951, the International Democratic Women's Union took it further. They called for June 1st to officially be recognized as Children's Rights Day. And that brings us to Mongolia. We celebrated our first official Children's Day in 1952, and it quickly became a beloved tradition. So every year in June 1st, kids would gather in Children's Park, full of excitement, and their parents would gift them something special. But typically, it's a bag of candies, sweets, and toys, and whatnot. And I also have many memories of celebrating June 1st. I still remember how my sister and I would put on our prettiest dresses, and once we'd been saving for some kind of special occasions. And our parents would take us to the theme park. We call it Hochtheme Park. And even though we'd spend most of the time waiting in longs just to try a couple of rides, it didn't matter to us. It felt like the best day in the whole year. And there's one thing that always stands out in my memory: the cotton candy, or some people call it candy floss. I'd see other kids walking around with those big pink clouds on sticks, and always wanted one so badly. But for some reason, my parents never let us have it. Maybe it was about money, or maybe they just thought it wasn't healthy for us. Finally, when I tried the cotton candy when I became an adult, I actually didn't like it at all. I guess it was just the looks. And anyway, Hochtimbayer was of excitement for us, and the best part was receiving gifts. And if you grew up in Mongolia, chances are you still remember the magic of those June 1st gifts. So, back to the history. Over time, people started asking, shouldn't we also celebrate the ones who bring children to the world? What about mothers? So, in 1995, Mongolia's first president, Achirpat Phuntsuk, issued a decree. From then on, June 1st would be Children's and Mother's Day. Now, some people pushed back. They argued, wait, we already have March 8th for women, but others countered, March 8th is for all women, but June 1st is for the mothers. And honestly, that resonated with a lot of families. Fathers were expected to step up, make the day, June 1st, special not just for the kids, but for moms too. And while many did, there were still plenty who didn't. That gap in effort sparked some criticism and conversations that still come up today. In the end, the dual celebration of the children and their mother on June 1st didn't stick around that long. After 8 years in 2003, the government officially reversed the decision, and June 1st returned to being Children's Day only. And that's how it stands today. It's still a public holiday written into our labor law, and still June 1st remains one of the happiest, joyful days of the year in Mongolia, and a precious part of growing up Mongolian. Now let's hear from the story submitted by our followers. So I want to shout out to Tugsu, Undarmaa, and Beku for sharing their favorite childhood memories.
Hi, one of my most cherished childhood memories would be spending summers with my nomadic grandparents. As soon as summer vacation started, my parents would take me and my older sister to their summer spot. They lived in medium-sized yurt surrounded by nature with no electricity, no technology, just open space and a simple way of life. They kept 4 kinds of animals: horse, cows, and sheep and goats, and we helped them to take care of the animals, spent our days mostly playing with neighbors' kids and our cousins, just running free in the wide open landscape. And in that place, if you look to the south, you would see the edge of the Elsin Desert. And to the north, there would be lush green land with tall mountains. And there was even a small lake nearby with swans and cranes. And people often ask me how 8 of us managed to live in a single yurt. But to us, that yurt was just a small part of our home. The entire land around us was our living room, kitchen, playground, and sometimes even our bedroom. And even though I've traveled and lived in several places, countries, since then, that place, that our grandparents' summer spot, remains the most beautiful and meaningful place to me. And wherever I am, I still pray to that place, and honestly, I believe its spirits are still watching over me. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Beku. I live and study in the capital city of Hungary. Now I'm going to share one of my childhood memories with you. As a Mongolian person, I had a chance to go to countryside during my summer holiday when I was in 7th grade maybe. And early in the morning at 5 a.m., my task was to collect all the cows to milk them. I wasn't the person like who milks the cow, but my task was just to collect them. And I do remember that on that day, I was riding my horse, and it was really early in the morning, and sun was rising, and it was indescribably beautiful. And even though I had no idea I was appreciating it, I was just thinking that like it's so cool or beautiful. Like I had no idea what I was feeling, but like I was definitely enjoying it. And to look back, I think it was one of the moments which taught me how to appreciate nature and like little things in life. If time machine existed, I would definitely go back that time. Then I will ride my horse and speed towards the sun and inhale the fresh air and feel the wind on my cheek. Thank you for Mother Mongolia podcast for giving me an opportunity to share my childhood memory.
When I think about my childhood in Ulaanbaatar, I think it was full of trees and greenery everywhere. I remember walking next to tall trees and bushes. Maybe it's because I was very small compared to trees, but I think it was very green city, and it was very, very warm as well during summer. So you want to go to park and hide from sun under the trees. And that is the most a beautiful, beautiful memory of my childhood in Ulaanbaatar.
I'll also read a message sent by Anko Gambold to our Instagram page. My favorite memory of growing up in Mongolia is definitely the level of classmate friendship there is. Having only been in Mongolia until my 4th grade and since moved to the UK, my best memories as a child are still the moments I spent with my friends during class back in Mongolia. And I'm still friends with them until this day. One of the most memorable moments is spending a whole day decorating the classroom with cut-up paper crafts from the annual talent shows and sneaking around classrooms during talent practice. We would also just show up in these frilly dresses for the plays like Unhrush. I genuinely hope that children growing up now, wherever they end up, have great memories looking back on their childhood, and hope June 1st acts as a reminder to parents to support their children and allow them to have fun. This is very precious memory, and thank you so much for Anko Gambold for sending the message and contributing to this episode. While Children's Day is a time of celebration, it's also a moment to pause and think about the reality many children in Mongolia face today. The most critical issue we have today in Mongolia, which violates children's right for well-being, is air pollution. In Ulaanbaatar, winter air pollution regularly reaches catastrophic level. We're talking about PM 2.5 concentrations spiking to over 1,000 micrograms per cubic meter, 10 to 20 times higher than what the World Health Organization considers safe. And during the peak cold winter, this goes up to 200 times higher than what considers to be safe. It's not just bad air, it's deadly. And according to UNICEF, kids living in these high pollution zones are 2 to 3 times more likely to suffer respiratory infections. Children breathe faster than adults, and their lungs are still developing. That means the polluted air they're exposed to every day can have lasting effects on their health, even on their brain development. And for pregnant women, the risks are just as serious as it can get. For example, premature births, development delays, stillbirth, and the list goes on. But air is only just one part of the problem. 1 in 3 children in Mongolia lives below the poverty line. Many of them grow up in Gir districts, areas on the edges of the city with overcrowded housing, no running water, unreliable heating, and no safe place to play. Malnutrition affects 1 in 5 children in these neighborhoods, stunting both physical and cognitive development. And when kids leave the house, things don't get much safer. Traffic accidents are the second leading cause of death for children aged 5 to 18. And just think about that. Almost 40% of the fatalities are child pedestrians. Kids who were simply walking to school or playing outside in areas with no sidewalks, no crosswalks, no traffic calming. Only 12% of drivers actually wear seat belts. And child car seats, it's still a rarity. And then there's what happens behind closed doors. 1 in 3 children experiences physical or psychological abuse in the home. Poverty, stress, and alcoholism often feed into this cycle. With limited intervention and few support systems, the pain continues unnoticed. And for too many, childhood is replaced by work. 15% of children aged 5 to 17 are forced to child labor. And these aren't just statistics, they're the lived reality of thousands of children across the country. Behind the balloons and performances, thousands of kids need more than just one day of celebration. They need clean air, safe spaces, protection, and support systems that actually work. Because children deserve more than just survival, they deserve to thrive. And right now, more and more young parents are making the difficult decision to leave the country, not because they want to, but because they feel they have no choice. They're doing it for their kids. Education is just one part of it, but before even they get into that stage, many parents say the most basic things are missing. And I agree with them because I know the reality. Things like being able to walk down the street with a stroller without dodging potholes or stepping into traffic. Mongolian families deserve to raise their children here in Mongolia, in their own country, without having to fight so hard just to meet the basics. Clean air, safe roads, a quiet park, a playground that's not next to a dump. These aren't luxuries. They're the foundation of a decent life. And also, Mongolian children deserve to grow up in a country that welcomes them, protects them, and gives them the space to just be kids, to breathe, to play, and to dream. That's not too much to ask. Growing up in Mongolia, for me, the childhood is shaped by nature, tradition, family, and community, and that's something worth holding on to. It feels truly special. But the reality today is more complex and not the same for every child, as I just discussed. And in the countryside, many kids still grow up close to the land, surrounded by endless skies and the rhythms of earthing life. But rural life comes with its own struggles. Limited access to healthcare, schools, and sometimes even basic services. For some, the steppe is freedom. For others, it's isolation. And meanwhile, in the cities, especially in Ulaanbaatar, children face a different set of challenges. Toxic air, cramped living condition, a lack of green spaces or safe playgrounds, and the pressures of poverty and inequality. Whether a child is growing up chasing goats on the steppe or dodging traffic on their way to school in the city, the hopes are the same. They just want to feel safe, to breathe clean air, to play, learn, and also to be seen. Every child, no matter where they live, deserves the chance to grow up in a place that supports them, doesn't just expect them to adapt or survive, but actually makes a space for them to be kids and to feel proud of who they are and where they are from. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and if you'd like to keep up with Mongolia, make sure you subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and everywhere else. Хамт байсанд маш их баярлалаа. Баяртай.